My name is Kelsey Donovan, 32 years old, a graphic designer who clawed her way through 6 grueling years of freelance gigs to own a sleek apartment in Plano, Texas. Never in my wildest dreams did I think my own parents would sit me down at a summer family dinner and demand I hand it over to my sister, like it was just another item on their grocery list. We're all packed around their Frisco dining table, the clink of forks cutting through the tension. Mom, with her usual air of finality, says, "Your apartment is the perfect gift for your sister. She's got big plans and you can always rent something cheap." Dad nods, adding, "It's time you put family first, Kelsey." My sister, eyes gleaming like she's already measuring my curtains for her sewing machine, chimes in, "I'll turn that spare room into my fashion studio. You get it right?" The words land like a punch, my pulse racing as I grip the edge of my chair. 6 years of late-night logo tweaks, skipped vacations, and penny pinching for a down payment erased in their minds, as if I'd just been house-sitting. They expect me to pack up and clear out because her latest boutique dream crashed and burned. The sheer gall of it sparks something fierce in me. I lean forward, voice steady, and say, "If that's your play, my response will expose a truth about this family you're not ready for." What came next flipped their plan upside down, a showdown that laid bare every lie they leaned into. Before I unpack that fight, a tale of betrayal, hard lines, and reclaiming what's mine, drop in the comments where you're watching from. If family ever tried to claim what you built, share your story below. Smash that like if this hits home, and subscribe for more raw tales of standing up to those who should know better. Your support keeps these stories alive. Growing up in Frisco, Texas, my sister Mackenzie and I were inseparable. We'd spend hours sprawled on the living room floor, markers and sketch pads scattered around us, dreaming up wild designs. I'd draw fantastical book covers, dragons curling around Gothic fonts, while Mackenzie sketched dresses with flared skirts and bold patterns. At 10 and 5, we'd swap pages, giggling over her sequined ball gowns and my neon-colored spaceships. "We're gonna be famous artists," she'd declare, her pigtails bouncing as we pinky swore to open a studio together someday. Those days, our small ranch house felt like a creative haven, with Mom cheering our doodles and Dad taping our best pieces to the fridge. By middle school, things started shifting. Mackenzie at 12 got obsessed with fashion, ripped jeans, chunky boots, anything she saw in teen magazines. Mom and Dad began funneling cash into her whims, a shiny new sewing machine for her 13th birthday, summer fashion camps in Dallas, even a weekend workshop with a local designer. "She's got a spark," Mom would say, beaming as Mackenzie modeled a lopsided sundress she'd stitched. I didn't mind at first. My sketches were leaning toward digital art, and I'd spend hours on our clunky family computer teaching myself Photoshop with online tutorials. But when I asked for a $50 art program to practice layouts, Dad brushed me off. "We're tight this month, Kelsey," he said, while Mackenzie's camp fees easily triple that never seemed to be an issue. High school sharpened the divide. At 16, I was sketching logos for school clubs, dreaming of a graphic design degree. I'd stay up late researching scholarships for UT Dallas, knowing college was my ticket out. Meanwhile, Mackenzie, barely 13, was getting private sewing lessons, her room overflowing with fabric bolts Mom bought on sale. When I landed a part-time job at a Frisco coffee shop to save for a laptop, Mom barely noticed, too busy signing Mackenzie up for another design course. "Your sister's got big potential," she'd say, as if my portfolio of posters for the drama club was just a hobby. Dad, always quieter, would nod along, never questioning the uneven scales. By the time I hit 18, the favoritism was glaring. I applied to UT Dallas, got in, and pieced together my tuition with Pell Grants, a barista gig, and a side hustle designing flyers for local businesses. Every dollar was a fight. $4 lattes served to cranky customers late nights, formatting menus for mom-and-pop shops, student loans piling up like a bad bet. Mackenzie, though, sailed into a fashion school in Houston, tuition fully covered by our parents. She needs the support to shine, Mom insisted, when I asked why they couldn't chip in for my textbooks. I swallowed the sting, kept my head down, and churned out assignments determined to prove I didn't need their help. Mackenzie's path predictably wobbled. Halfway through her first year, she started skipping classes, more interested in Instagram aesthetics than actual coursework. By her second year, she dropped out, claiming she'd learn better on her own. Mom and Dad didn't blink, funneling more money into her side projects, fabric orders, a website for her boutique. I'd call home from my dorm, exhausted from pulling doubles at the cafe, and hear about her latest vision board. She's finding her way, Dad would say, as if my 4.0 GPA and client list were invisible. I'd hang up staring at my tiny dorm fridge, wondering why my grind never seemed to measure up. Looking back, those years laid the fault lines. Mackenzie and I drifted our sketchpad days, buried under her coddled dreams and my quiet hustle. I still loved her, but the resentment simmered not at her, but at the lopsided rules our parents set. By the time I graduated debt-heavy but proud, I thought I'd left that unfairness behind. I was wrong. After graduating, I poured everything into building my career. My graphic design degree from UT Dallas came with a hefty student loan, but I hit the freelance circuit hard, signing up on platforms like Upwork to chase every logo, banner, and website mock-up gig available. My first place in Plano was a shoebox rental, leaky faucet, noisy neighbors, but it was my war room. I'd burn the midnight oil, tweaking layouts for demanding startup founders fueled by cheap coffee and stubborn ambition. Early on, the paychecks were slim, barely covering rent and loan payments, but I hustled, stacking a portfolio that started catching eyes. A couple of years in, I landed a game changer, a lucrative contract with an Austin tech startup to design their full branding package, logo, app, interface, marketing assets. That deal opened doors. Soon, I was creating visuals for a Dallas restaurant chain, a fitness app out of Houston, even campaign materials for a local politician. My client list grew, and so did my bank account. I was relentless, cold-pitching businesses, refining designs till dawn, funneling every spare dollar into a savings account marked home. Driving through Plano's tidy neighborhoods, I'd spot modern apartment complexes with sleek facades and big windows, vowing one would be mine someday. After 6 years of grinding, I had enough for a down payment on a 2-bedroom unit in a sharp Plano building, my name on the deed, a mortgage I could handle. Walking in that first day, hanging my own artwork on the walls, setting up a desk by a small balcony, it felt like planting a flag on my own turf. My boyfriend Ethan, a financial advisor I met at a networking mixer, helped me navigate the paperwork to make it real. We'd been together a year, and his knack for numbers grounded my creative streak. He'd grin, lounging in my new living room, joking about borrowing my balcony for client calls. But then Mom started ringing me up out of the blue. "How's that new place, Kelsey?" she'd ask, voice too smooth. Pressing for details, square footage, amenities, guest space. Dad followed suit, casually probing about parking and maintenance fees during a Sunday call. I chalked it up to parental pride, but the questions piled up, each one sharper than the last, like they were cataloging my home for a reason. Ethan wasn't buying the act. Over burgers at a local joint, he leaned across the table, eyes narrow. "Your family didn't care this much when you were scraping by in college," he pointed out, tying it back to the favoritism I'd shared from my teen years. "They're up to something. Watch your back." His words hit like a warning bell, lingering as Mom's texts shifted to requests for photos of my place, her tone almost too eager. My sister jumped in, flooding my inbox with Pinterest boards of interior design ideas, raving about how perfect my apartment was for her vibe. I sent a few pics to keep the peace, but Ethan's caution gnawed at me. Then they showed up. Mom and my sister rolled in on a Saturday, claiming they were just passing through Plano. Mom strode in, inspecting every inch like she was staging it for sale. "Such great light in here," she said, running a hand along my kitchen counter. My sister, clutching a tape measure, started sizing up my windows, muttering about how the space would work perfectly for a vision board wall. I stood frozen, arms folded, as she paced my living room like it was already hers. "This is my home," I snapped sharper than intended. Mom laughed it off, saying, "We're just so proud of you," but her quick glance at my sister felt calculated, like they were reading from the same script. Ethan, dropping by with takeout, caught the vibe and shot me a knowing look, his earlier warning now loud and clear. That visit left me rattled. Mom's probing my sister's brazen, measuring Ethan's gut check. It all screamed trouble. I'd clawed my way to this life design by design, and now my own family was eyeing my home like it was up for grabs. Whatever they were scheming, I wasn't letting it slide. A week after that evening visit, my parents insisted on a family dinner back in Frisco. I hadn't been to their house in months, too busy settling into my new apartment, but Mom's text was firm. "We need everyone together." I drove over with Ethan, my boyfriend, expecting a routine catch-up, maybe some grilled chicken and small talk. Instead, I walked into a scene that turned my world upside down. The dining room was set like always, same chipped plates, same faded tablecloth from my childhood. Mom bustled around, piling cornbread and green beans onto platters, while Dad carved a roast, his knife scraping the cutting board. My sister lounged at the table, scrolling her phone, barely glancing up as I sat down. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table, sensing the odd vibe. We made it through the first course, swapping light stories about work and Ethan's latest client wins, but the air felt heavy, like everyone was waiting for a cue. Then Mom dropped the hammer. She set her fork down, leaned forward, and said, "Kelsey, we've been thinking. Your apartment would be the perfect family gift for your sister." My jaw tightened, but she kept going, calm, as if discussing the weather. "She's got big plans for her fashion line, and that space is ideal. You're doing fine, you can find another place." Dad nodded, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "It's time you stepped up for family," he said, his tone final, like I'd already agreed. My sister perked up, eyes gleaming. "I'm picturing the spare room as my sewing studio," she said, swiping through her phone to show a sketch of my living room, now cluttered with mannequins and fabric rolls. "It's perfect for my brand reboot." "You're cool with it, right?" I stared at them, my pulse hammering. My apartment, my reward for years of late nights, scrapped vacations, and every design I'd bled for, was being handed over like a spare key. Ethan's grip on my hand tightened, but I didn't need his cue to speak. "That's my home," I said, voice low but steady. "I worked for it. It's not up for grabs." Mom's smile faltered, replaced by a sharp edge. "Don't be selfish, Kelsey," she snapped. "Your sister needs this more than you do. You've always been the one who lands on her feet." Dad piled on, his voice gruff. "We raised you to put family first. This is what that looks like." Ethan couldn't stay quiet. "Hold on," he said, leaning in. "Kelsey earned that place. You can't just demand she give it up." Mom's eyes narrowed, cutting him off. "This is family business, Ethan. You're not part of it." The jab hit hard, and I felt my cheeks burn, not just for me, but for him, dismissed like an outsider after a year of being my rock. My sister, oblivious, kept rambling about her vision for my balcony, how it'd be great for product photos. Each word was a spark to my fuse. I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud against the hardwood. "You don't get to decide what's mine," I said, locking eyes with Mom, then Dad, then my sister. "You think this is about family? It's about you taking what I built because it's easier than fixing her mistakes." The room went silent, their faces frozen. Mom's lips pursed. Dad's brow furrowed, my sister's phone finally still. I didn't wait for a comeback. "I'm not moving out," I said, standing. "Not now. Not ever." Ethan stood with me, his hand on my back, and we walked out the front door, clicking shut behind us like a slammed book. Driving back to Plano, my hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. Ethan didn't push me to talk, just sat quietly as I processed the betrayal. They'd given me a short deadline to vacate, as if my life was a lease they could cancel. But that dinner wasn't just a demand, it was a line in the sand. I'd spent years proving I could stand on my own, and no amount of guilt trips or family lectures was going to strip that away. I was done playing their game. The weeks after that dinner felt like a pressure cooker. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Mom's voicemails, Dad's clipped texts, my sister's late-night messages, all hammering the same tune. I was letting the family down. Mom would call during my lunch breaks, her voice syrupy with guilt. Kelsey family comes first, she'd say, painting me as the villain for not handing over my apartment. Your sister's counting on you to step up. Dad's texts were sterner, blunt demands to think about what's right. My sister, meanwhile, sent paragraphs about her fashion dreams, how my spare room was the key to her big break. Each message felt like a jab, twisting the knife of obligation deeper. I tried to keep my head down, focusing on client deadlines, logos for a new Dallas bakery, a website revamp for a Fort Worth gym. But the barrage didn't stop. Mom left a voicemail one evening, her tone sharp. "You're being selfish, Kelsey. We didn't raise you to put yourself above your sister." My sister followed up with a photo of a sewing machine captioned, "This would fit perfectly in your guest room." I'd stare at my phone, jaw tight, fighting the urge to fire back. Ethan, my boyfriend, saw me unraveling. Over coffee at my place, he set his mug down and said, "They're not asking, Kels. They're bullying you." His words cut through the fog, but I still hoped it was just overzealous family loyalty, not something darker. Then came the bombshell. I got a call from Aunt Barbara, Mom's older sister, who'd always been a neutral voice in our family chaos. She and Uncle Gary invited me to their house in Allen for brunch, a rare request. Over pancakes, Barbara leaned in, her voice low. "Your parents are in deep trouble," she said, glancing at Gary for backup. He nodded, stirring his coffee. "They sank a lot into your sister's online boutique," he explained. "It tanked, and now they're drowning in debt." Barbara added, "They've been scrambling to cover it, but it's bad. They won't admit it, but we heard them talking about your apartment as a way to bail themselves out." My stomach dropped. The pieces clicked. Mom's probing calls, my sister's brazen plans, the sudden push to gift my home. They weren't just favoring my sister, they were betting my future to fix their mistake. I drove home in a daze, replaying every guilt trip, every demand. Ethan was waiting at my apartment, and when I spilled what Barbara and Gary said, his face hardened. "This isn't about family," he said, pacing my living room. "They're trying to use your place to clean up their mess." He stopped, looked me square in the eye, and said, "You need a lawyer, Kelsey. Someone who knows property law. I know a guy, Derek. He's sharp, specializes in real estate. You can't let them strong-arm you." I nodded, my resolve hardening. I'd spent years building this life, and I wasn't about to let it be a pawn in their financial gamble. That night, I started digging. I pulled up my sister's old boutique website, long abandoned but still online. The splashy homepage screamed ambition, bold fonts, glossy photos of her designs, but the Shop Now button led to a dead end. I remembered Mom hyping it up years ago, how they'd poured money into inventory and marketing. Now Barbara's words echoed a failed venture, a heavy debt, and my apartment as their escape plan. I found Derek's contact in Ethan's phone, a lawyer with a no-nonsense reputation, and sent him a message laying out the basics. My family's demand, their debt, my refusal to budge. His reply came fast. "Sounds like they're banking on your compliance. Let's protect your asset." The weight of it all settled in. Every call, every text, every plea about family was a calculated move to offload their burden onto me. I wasn't just fighting for my home, I was fighting for the right to keep what I'd earned. My sister's dreams. My parents' bad bets didn't get to rewrite my story. The next morning, my phone pinged with an email that made my stomach drop. The subject line read, "Property Transfer Agreement," and the attached document claimed my sister Mackenzie was the rightful owner of my Plano apartment. The text was formal, stamped with a notary seal, stating I'd agreed to relinquish the deed as a family gift. My hands shook as I scanned the pages. My signature was there, but I'd never signed anything like it. It was a forgery, blatant and sloppy, but the audacity hit like a punch. I forwarded it to Derek, my lawyer, with a single line: "This isn't real. Help." I was at my office, a shared co-working space in Dallas, when the storm hit. I'd been pitching a rebrand for a local coffee chain, my laptop open to mock-ups, when Mom, Dad, my sister, and a woman I vaguely recognized stormed in. The woman, Brianna, my sister's old business partner from her failed boutique, clutched a folder, her face smug. Mom led the charge, her voice loud enough to turn heads. "Kelsey, we need to settle this. Now," she said, slamming the same forged document onto my desk. "You agreed to give your sister the apartment. Sign it over, or we're done." Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, nodding like a silent enforcer. My sister chimed in, waving her phone. "I've got plans for that space," she said. "It's perfect for my new collection. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The room went quiet, my coworkers glancing over their keyboards still. Brianna stepped forward, tossing her hair. "Your parents and I are tied up in some financial trouble from the boutique," she said, her tone clipped. "Your apartment clears our debts. It's only fair." I stared, my mind racing. This wasn't just about my sister's dreams. It was a calculated move to dump their failed venture's fallout on me. My pulse pounded, but I kept my voice steady. "I never signed that," I said, pointing at the document. "That's fake, and you know it." Before they could respond, I called Derek, putting him on speaker. His voice cut through the tension. "I've reviewed the email," he said. "That document's a fraud. No legal weight. Kelsey's deed is clean, and I'm prepared to file charges for forgery if you push this." Mom's face reddened, but my sister doubled down, raising her voice. "You're so selfish, Kelsey. This is for the family." The accusation stung, echoing years of their favoritism, but I wasn't backing down. My coworkers were now openly staring, one reaching for her phone, likely ready to call security. I texted Ms. Linda, the property manager at my apartment complex, attaching the forged document. She replied within minutes. "Checked your file. Your deed's in order, no transfer recorded." "That paper's nonsense." I held up my phone, showing her message to the group. "It's over," I said, my voice firm. "This is my home. You don't get to rewrite my life to fix your mistakes." Brianna scoffed, but Dad shifted uncomfortably, his eyes dropping. Mom, though, wasn't done. She stepped closer, her finger jabbing the air. "You're turning your back on us," she hissed, "after everything we've done for you." Ethan, who'd been at a client meeting nearby, walked in just then, catching the tail end of Mom's tirade. He didn't hesitate. "Enough," he said, his voice calm but cutting. "You're in her workplace making a scene. Leave, or I'm calling the police." My sister rolled her eyes, muttering about outsiders, but Brianna tugged at her arm, sensing the tide turning. Derek's voice crackled through the phone again. "I'm drafting a cease and desist letter," he said. "Any more stunts like this, and you're facing a lawsuit." The threat landed hard. Mom's jaw tightened, but she grabbed her purse. Dad followed, silent, avoiding my gaze. My sister lingered, glaring, before Brianna pulled her out. As they left the office, air felt heavy, my coworkers whispering as I sank into my chair. Ethan squeezed my shoulder, his presence steadying me. The forged document, their brazen confrontation, it was their last-ditch effort to bully me into submission. But I'd held my ground, armed with the truth and allies like Derek and Ms. Linda. My home was mine, and I wasn't letting their desperation take it. A few days later, I knew my family was a chapter I had to close. Derek, my lawyer, acted fast. He sent a cease and desist letter to Mom, Dad, my sister, and Brianna, spelling out in no uncertain terms that my apartment was mine, backed by airtight paperwork. He'd cross-checked the deed with the county records, confirming no transfer, no loopholes, no chance for their forged document to stand. The letter warned of legal consequences if they tried another stunt. I didn't get a reply, but the silence spoke volumes. They'd run out of moves. Not long after, I heard through Aunt Barbara that my parents' house in Frisco had gone into foreclosure. Their gamble on my sister's failed boutique had caught up, draining their savings and leaving them underwater on their mortgage. Mackenzie, meanwhile, was back in Frisco living in their guest room after her latest fashion venture fizzled. Barbara mentioned tense fights with my sister, blaming mom and dad for not securing my apartment to bail her out. Their plan to use my home as a financial lifeboat had sunk, and now they were turning on each other. I felt a pang of guilt. Nobody wants to see their family crumble, but it faded fast. They'd chosen this path, not me. My phone kept buzzing with their calls and texts, mom's voicemails dripping with pleas for family unity, dad's messages gruffly demanding I come to my senses. My sister sent long rants accusing me of abandoning her dreams. I didn't respond. One evening, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, I made the call to block them all. Mom, Dad, my sister. My thumb hovered over the button for a moment, but when I pressed it, a weight lifted. I wasn't cutting them off to be cruel. I was done letting their manipulation define me. Aunt Barbara and Uncle Gary reached out, offering to mediate, but I politely declined. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Life moved forward, and it felt lighter. Ethan proposed one crisp October night down on one knee in a quiet park near my apartment. His ring was simple, a silver band with a small sapphire, but it meant everything. We'd been through the fire together, his steady support during the forged document chaos, his unwavering belief in my right to my home. I said yes, and we celebrated with takeout tacos on my couch, laughing about our future. My career was soaring too. I landed a lucrative contract with a Dallas-based tech firm designing their entire visual identity logos app, layouts, marketing collateral. The work was demanding but thrilling, a reminder of how far I'd come from those early freelance days. Looking back, the ordeal with my family taught me a truth I'll carry forever. Self-respect outweighs toxic ties, even blood ones. I'd spent years chasing their approval, bending to their guilt trips, but their attempt to take my home was the final straw. They saw my success as their safety net, not my achievement. Cutting them out wasn't easy. There were nights I second-guessed myself, wondering if I'd been too harsh. But each time I walked into my apartment, saw my artwork on the walls, my desk by the balcony, I knew I'd made the right call. My home was my sanctuary, earned through my own grit, and no one could take that away. For anyone watching this unfold, my story isn't just about a house. It's about standing up for what's yours. Family can be a strength, but when it's a chain, you have to break free. Set boundaries, hold them firm, and don't let guilt erode your worth. I'm building a life with Ethan now, one rooted in mutual respect, not manipulation. My career's thriving, my home's mine, and I've learned that the only approval I need is my own. That's the freedom I fought for, and it's worth every battle.